Welcome to day 6 of the 12 Days of Christmas Alexander Technique Explorations. I'm Amy Mushall with Your Instrumental Body. Here at Your Instrumental Body, we help people rediscover the joy of movement and expression by unlocking efficiency and vitality, not just in singing, but in everyday life. Through the Alexander Technique, we empower you to release unnecessary tension, cultivate mindful awareness, and find balance in how you move, breathe, and create. Today's exploration is all about resting into length. When life gets busy, we often find ourselves either slumping, really just no energy whatsoever, or we find ourselves trying to fix our posture by pulling up. And so, how do we actually find a way to a sweet spot, if you will, that's somewhere in between that allows us not to effort, but rather that we can meet our body with ease and freedom? So today, I'd invite you to find a seat, find a chair. You can also do this standing if you'd like. But today, I'd like to invite you to sit and just find yourself in whatever you feel is a really comfortable, neutral position, wherever that is in your body. I would like to invite you to forget whatever shoulds might be coming up for you, whatever ideas or thoughts you might have about doing it right. And instead, I invite you to just explore what's normal in you. Because when we start from a place of normal, that gives us lots of information. So if you're sitting at the computer, doing some work, or preparing to do work today, just notice how you normally sit. If you're seated on the couch or at the dining room table, ready to eat your breakfast, notice if you sit differently in those places. Notice how you sit in your car. So as we find ourselves seated, I want to invite you to take a moment to actually invite a little slump. And as you invite a slump, I invite you to let that slump happen all the way from the top of your head to your pelvis. And I'm going to actually back up just a little bit so that you can see what this looks like. So I'm going to slump, really inviting all of me to find a rounding. Now you might notice that my pelvis is a part of this, and I kind of rotated so that I'm sitting more on my tailbone in this slump. And I'd invite you to try that on. Maybe you're already there. And notice that my head is also slumping forward so that there's some sort of relationship between my head and my pelvis. And if we come up out of that, notice that my head and my pelvis are in relationship in that movement, in that shifting. And I'd like us to just try that on a couple of times. So you can put a hand here on your sternum and put a hand here on your abdomen. And let's invite those hands to come closer together, allowing our pelvis and our head to also come closer together, as though our third eye was coming closer to your pubic bone. And then let's let the third eye and the pubic bone come away from each other and coming closer and coming away. Now, oftentimes when I'm working with people, I find that people have a lot of judgments around slumping. They think that that's a really bad place to be, and they think that they have bad posture because of it. And so, what I typically find is that people tend to pull up with their sternum and pull their shoulders back. And I'd like to invite you to just try that on. You can feel how this is really going from that slump into a real pulling up and pulling back. And when that happens, just see what you notice in you and see how long it feels comfortable to hold this position. And when it gets tiring, I invite you to let it go. And when you let it go, I'd like to invite you to find your sit bones. So let's actually go through this little cycle again. So we're going to slump. And then we're going to pull ourselves up. And then we're going to just let ourselves rest, finding our sit bones. If you've never found your sit bones before, I invite you to palpate under your tushy muscles and find the little pokey parts, the little rockers, which are the base of your pelvis. They're the parts that when you ride a bike tend to get a little sore. So find that and really find a sense of rest into your sit bones. What's that like? Is that new? Is it different? Is it a place that you find yourself on the regular? Now, as we come back into that slump, bringing our hands closer together, notice how we roll back onto the tailbone and our sit bones kind of roll forward. And then notice when we pull ourselves up into that really pulled up position, notice how our tail really goes up, and you might notice that you get a real arch in your back. And you might notice that your head wants to look up. And so now, as we gently allow our hands to come ever so slightly closer, but just enough so that we find those sit bones, what is it like to still have length, to still have a sense of upwardness? Not a slump, but not a pulling up either, but rather a softening into length. This is something that I would invite you to explore at your computer, like I said, in the car, at the piano if you play the piano, or whether you're playing any other instrument. Notice what the relationship is between your pelvis and your head and your shoulders and your sternum. And what is it like to soften ever so slightly in this shoulder sternum area while still maintaining a bit of length and a soft float in your head as you find rest into your sit bones, but without falling into your sit bones. We're going to allow the weight to fall through our sit bones into our chair and still have a length and an upwardness that comes with ease. I hope that this exploration has been enlightening for you. I'd love to hear what you're noticing as you do this exploration. What are you noticing in your body? What are you noticing in your breath? What do you notice about how much energy it takes to pull up versus a slump versus somewhere resting in length? Feel free to comment below, and I'd love for you to like this video if this has been useful to you, and to share this series with a friend or a family member. Can't we all use a little ease this time of year? And come back tomorrow for day 7 of the 12 Days of Christmas Alexander Technique Explorations. I'm Amy Mushall with Your Instrumental Body. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great day.